So far, we've been talking about arguments, and we've just been focusing on whether or not they have the right general form. In other words, whether or not they're valid. We haven't yet talked about whether they are sound, whether the premises are in fact true. That's going to be the topic of this video. In particular, how do we go about evaluating certain general kinds of claims that we're going to find in arguments, especially arguments in this course. Take a statement like, if an action is right, then no one is harmed by it. Is that true? Is it false? How do we go about evaluating it? That's going to be the topic of this video. So let's talk about it. So what we're talking about are called counterexamples, and a counterexample is just an example that counters some claim. It's used to show that a general kind of claim is false. Take, for example, the one we have on the slide here, all mammals give live birth. Is that true? Well, no, not all mammals give live birth. There are platypus and echidna and other monotremes that lay eggs. They don't give live birth. So all we need is just one example, one case to show that a general claim like all mammals give live birth is false. This is what we're going for. This is the kind of technique, the kind of strategy that we're after. It's a little weird because this is something you probably already intuitively know how to do. But once we start to formalize it, once we start to build on it, you kind of lose grasp of that ability that you kind of naturally already have. So we want to make sure that we carry that through and that you understand what's going on here. What we're really after is an example or a situation that shows that a conditional, that an if-then statement is false. Okay, so if we go back to our all mammals give live birth example, this can sort of be translated into an if-then statement. If an animal is a mammal, then it gives live birth. That's an if-then statement. That's a conditional. And so how do we go about showing that a statement like that is false? So first, we've got to find the conditionals. A lot of times it'll be really explicit. In the case like we just saw it, all mammals give live birth, we had to do a little bit of work to unpack what the conditional is. Once we found it, we want to come up with a case, a situation, a scenario in which the first part of the conditional is true, but the back part is false. Let's go back to the all mammals give live birth. So if something is a mammal, then it gives live birth. I want the first part to be true. I want it to be a mammal, but I don't want it to give live birth. This is why a platypus and an echidna both work, right? Because they are mammals, so the first part is true, but they do not give live birth. So the second part is false. That's what we're after. So once we come up with a scenario, a case, all we have to do then is just describe it. And we're done. That's how you build a counterexample. You kind of already know how to do this. I mentioned this before, but let me give you just this is my favorite sort of conditional to give an example for this. If I shoot you, then you'll die. Is that a true statement? Think about it. No, right? You could get shot in the hand or the foot, or the bullet could graze you or whatever. You could get shot and not die. So you naturally, hopefully at least, thought of a scenario where the first part was true, you did get shot, but the back part was false, you didn't die. So you kind of already hopefully have an intuition about how to do this. But, we're going to get some practice, we're going to formalize it, we're going to build on it, and, these are going to come up all over the place. All throughout philosophy, and especially in ethics, we are going to see lots and lots of conditional statements. I've got one right here that's applicable to ethics, right? If an action is right, then it results in good consequences. That's now a statement that we can start to figure out how to evaluate, right? It's telling us what some kind of condition is for right action. And we can start to think, well, can I come up with counterexamples to it? Can I come up with a right action that does not have good consequences? Maybe. We'll see. So, but whatever the field is, whatever the complexity is, this is how we go about constructing counterexamples. Now, a lot of times what we're going to see is, especially when we get into ethical theories and stuff like that, we're going to see what's called an analysis. And an analysis is really just like two conditionals squished together. The way that you'll see it is written something if and only if something else. And if and only if is often abbreviated as IFF. That's just shorthand for P, if and only if Q. And what that means, what that unpacks to, are actually two conditionals. If P is true, then Q is true. And if Q is true, then P is true. So that's step one of identifying what an analysis is. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you what the module test is going to be like. You're going to have some questions maybe about just, hey, is this a good counterexample to this conditional? You'll have a question maybe that just asks you hey, here's an analysis, here's an if and only if statement. Just give me the two conditionals that comprise it, right? So once I unpack it, what are the two conditionals? And notice, so all I have to do is just go if left, then right, and then I reverse it. If right, then left. That's it. Don't try to get cute with it or anything. Don't try and put your if in the middle or anything like that. It's got to match this form or you're going to mess it up, or at least you run a very high risk of messing it up. Now, if this analysis here is true, then both of these would need to be true. So, one of the questions again might be, hey, just give me the two conditionals that follow from this analysis. Or in a more advanced question, I might ask you, hey, give me the two conditionals and give me a counterexample to each one of them. That would be a high level kind of question that you can expect to see on the module test. So let's get some practice with this and let's work one together here. So I've got an analysis here. An action is morally correct if and only if it makes someone happy. So remember, step one, what are our two conditionals? I'm going to go if left, then right, and then if right, then left. So if we stick with our, I'm just going to use this orange marker here, and we'll do our little boxes and circles like we were doing with logic, right? Here's box, an action is morally correct, makes someone happy, that's circle. So I'm just going to go if box, then circle, and then if circle, then box, right? If left, then right, if right, then left. That's all there is to it. If box, then circle, if circle, then box. Don't try to change the form. Don't try to put the if in the middle or get cute with it or anything like that. Just stick with this. So we've got our two if-then statements. Now, we're going to come up with a counterexample to each one of them, okay? To prove an analysis false, all you have to do is just give one counterexample to one of the if-then statements, but we're going to do it for two for extra practice. So we want to think of some cases where an action is morally correct, but it doesn't make someone happy. And then we'll think of a case where the action does make someone happy, but is not morally correct. See if you can come up with one on your own. Pause the video here, and then we'll take a look at an answer. So here's what I came up with. A little bit of a weird case. We've got somebody who knows her father committed a crime, and so she reports him anonymously. She's not happy about it. Her father's not happy about it. It's not really like anybody's particularly happy about it, but it does seem to be morally correct, right? So here's a case where the action, so reporting a father for some serious crime, is morally correct, but it doesn't make anybody happy. And let's flip this. This is, I think, a little bit easier to come up with a counterexample to. A case where somebody, an action makes somebody happy but is not morally correct. I've got, hey, somebody kills somebody out of revenge. It makes them happy, it makes them satisfied, but certainly not morally correct. Here's another one that might be a little bit better for this first one. Let's say you got to take your kid to go get, like a shot at the doctor or something. You're not happy about it, like your kid's not happy about it. The doctor's just sort of like whatever, right? But it's like the morally correct thing to do, but nobody's like happy about it. So that's all we need to do. We just find the conditionals, figure out a case where the first part is true and the second part is false, and then just describe it. That's it. That's all there is to counterexamples. So let's get some together. So remember, analysis has two conditionals. If P, then Q. If Q, then P. We're going to come up with counterexamples where the first part is true and the second part is false. And remember, don't try to get cute with this. Don't try to be clever. Keep it if box, then circle. If circle, then box. That's it. Okay. Let's see what you can come up with for this first one. If an action causes pain, then it's immoral. Pause the video and think about it. Did you think of something? Okay, let's see. So we want to think of a case where an action does cause pain but is not immoral. Going and getting a vaccine, right? Getting your flu shot or something like that. That's kind of painful, but it's not immoral. If I trip and just fall, right? That can be painful, but it's not like immoral, right? I just fell down. It was an accident. So either of these would work as counterexamples. Let's try another one. Okay, something is bad for you if and only if it tastes bad. So now you're going to have to break it down into its two conditionals and give me a counterexample for each one so we can get more practice with this stuff. Okay, think about it. Got an answer? Okay, let's see how you did. So we need our first one. If it's bad for you, then it tastes bad. Antifreeze is bad for you. I've always been told, I've never tried antifreeze. Please don't try antifreeze. But I've always been told that like it has kind of a sweet taste, and so you're supposed to like do a really good job of cleaning it up if you're like changing out the antifreeze in your car or whatever. Or what about like some kind of tasteless poison, right? That would be bad for you, but doesn't taste bad. Okay, here's something. So now we need something that tastes bad, but is not bad for you. If you're sick and you need some cough medicine, right? Tastes terrible, but it's not bad for you. A lot of people don't like their veggies. They say, oh, it tastes bad, but your veggies are not bad for you, right? So don't worry about if they're subjective or anything like that. And genuinely, like on the module test, if you just wrote the word, if this was the conditional I gave you, and I asked you to give me a counterexample, and you just wrote the word broccoli, I would know what you're talking about. I'd be like, okay, good. Yep, you get full points for that. So you don't have to like overthink this stuff. You don't have to go into great detail. I just want to know that you understand how this stuff works. Let's do a couple more. So we've got another full analysis. Something is good for you if and only if it tastes good. Okay, so now we're trying to link being good for you and tasting good. See if you can come up with two counterexamples for this one. Okay, what do you have? So I've got if it's good for you, then it tastes good. Broccoli works here again, right? If you don't like broccoli, broccoli's good for you. But some people, don't like how it tastes, or veggies in general or whatever. Okay, how about the second one? If it's good for you, if it tastes good, then it's good for you. Okay, so I need to think of something that does taste good, but is not good for me. Something that has like a really high fat content or really high sodium content. It might taste good, really high sugar content, right? But it's not good for you. So, candy, something like that. It can taste good, but it's not good for you. Okay, let's do one more. This is going to try and connect an action being morally correct with being required by law. This will be an interesting case to try and come up with for both directions. So see if you can come up with a counterexample for each direction. Okay, let's take a look. So, first one, if something is morally correct, then it's required by law. If you're driving along the road and you see a stranded motorist you are under no like legal obligation to like help that person, but you might be morally obligated depending on the scenario, right? So, maybe stopping to help somebody is morally correct, but is not required by law. I think, and don't hold me to this, but I think if you're on a boat, you're required by law to like report or like help tow them in. But I don't think in like any other case you are. I'm not sure about that. I'm not an attorney, but those are going to be cases where something is morally correct but not required. Okay. Here we need a case of something that is required by law but is not morally correct. This can be a little bit harder to think about because it's not as if morality and the law have nothing at all to do with each other, right? It does seem to be the case that we make a lot of laws that tend to reflect our moral standing, our moral values. But if I'm like rushing somebody to the hospital or trying to like outrun a tornado or something like that, I'm not going to make a full and complete stop at a stop sign, right? Stopping at the stop sign or whatever is required by law, but it might not be morally correct, right? If it ends up getting me or my passengers injured or killed or whatever, like that's not going to be cool. So those are how counterexamples work. So again, all we have to do, find the conditional. If we've got an analysis, right, an if and only if statement, it'll be if box then circle, and then if circle then box. And then once we have our conditional or conditionals, once we have our if then statements, we want a case where the front part is true, but the back part is false. And then we just want to describe it. And again, that can just be like one word, like broccoli, or maybe it takes a little bit more description, but that's all there is to it. So please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to meet with you on Zoom, on whatever you need.